Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. This is our first WordStream Live Q&A. Obviously, there's so much going on in the world and in our own business. We decided to go on a little bit of an experimental take towards a webinar today. So you've the pleasure of course, listening to me for the next half an hour, but I really want to have you guys get the most of you can out of this. So please, I'm going to treat this more as a live Q&A than anything else. Today's topic, we're going to talk about how COVID-19 is shaping Google search trends and patterns. I've got some data that I'm going to go through quickly, but really the big focus of today is how can I help you guys? What can we do in terms of answering your questions? Because I'm sure you have plenty. So we're going to get started just in a bit. Before we do, I trust that if you arrived at this page, if you found our webinar today, thank you for taking the time. Hopefully you're familiar with WordStream. If you're not familiar with WordStream, welcome aboard. WordStream, we're an online advertising platform designed to help people manage their paid search and their paid social campaigns. Our flagship product is our WordStream Advisor and the 20-minute work week, specifically designed for advertisers and agencies to make the most out of the paid search campaigns without taking a whole lot of time. Our online advertising software allows people to manage their reporting, their management, and the optimization of Google, Bing, and Facebook all within 20 minutes a week. If you haven't played around with us, I highly encourage you to do so. And by all means, just like today, all I'm here to do is be social with you guys. We have a team that's dedicated. We talk the talk, we walk the walk. Social is important to us. Please follow us across our social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. We're everywhere. So please hop on WordStream across all of your social platforms. And finally, I know that there's going to be tons of questions around this. Thank you for taking the time today. If you're watching us live, the webinar, yes, it will be recorded. You will receive the recording shortly afterwards, delivered to the inbox in which you registered for this. You'll also receive the slides. But the biggest thing that I can say today is I'd love to talk for a full half hour, but I know that you guys have a lot of questions. So I want to make sure that we can get the most out of this. Submit your questions to the Q&A in the GoToWebinar feed, and I'll be sure to save at least half of our time today so that I can just specifically go through the questions that you've either submitted in advance or the questions that come through live. And with all of that, of course, you might be wondering, what's going on? Who's talking to us? Today, you've got on the line, my name is Mark Irvin, and I'm the Senior Data Scientist at WordStream. Being Senior Data Scientist is a really cool title, of course. It means that I have a really great title. It means I get to break that out at parties. Oh, well, when parties occur again. But people get a lot of excitement out of the title Senior Data Scientist. Effectively, what I do here is I spend my time and I analyze the trends of 30,000 individual clients across Google, across Bing, across Facebook. And what that normally means in a normal period of time is that as people are doing their own A/B tests and ad copy, landing pages, trying out new networks, trying out new ad targeting, trying out new ad formats, as things change in the industry, I'm able to see not just how that's impacting in a couple individual accounts, but several thousand accounts. With the current environment going on around us, it gives us a large pool of data to draw from in terms of what the trends are and what other people are going through right now. Because right now we're all in this together, we're all learning together. Data is only going to help us make a lot of powerful decisions. So that's my day-to-day job. Outside of that, I was recently voted the #1 most influential PPC expert of 2019 by PPC Hero and by Microsoft Advertising. Thank both of them. By all means, 2020 voting is open for both of them as well. So if you like this and you want to see me stay as #1, happy to follow up and have you follow me on social at MarkIrvin89 and hope to take that title again in 2020. And now I've had 8 years of paid search experience, and not all of them have been the month of April 2020, but it sure feels like it. With 8 years, of course, there's a lot that backs us up on this, but it's something that we're all learning very quickly in a world of COVID. Me and the trends that impacted 2015, 2016, in the past couple of years, they aren't necessarily the most relevant to what's going on in COVID. So we're all in this, we're learning together. And luckily at WordStream, we're learning very quickly. Of course, you guys came on because you want to know what's going on in the world of COVID and how that's impacting paid search. Now, of course, COVID is impacting just about every part of our lives today. It's impacting, of course, our health and our well-being, our families and our countries, but it's also impacting our businesses and our marketing as well. On paid search specifically, there's no denying COVID-19 has been very difficult for a lot of businesses and a lot of their businesses marketing. Broadly, we see the fact that people are taking fewer searches online during this period of time. We're seeing that search ad clicks have decreased by about 5% since the beginning of March when this first really came about. We see that Google search ad conversion rates have dropped by about 16%, as a lot of people are pulling back on their ad spend, as a lot of people are less likely to go out and make a purchase during this period of time. And most impacted, of course, as nations, states, countries all enter some form of lockdown or some short form of shelter in place, or at least some reduced operations. We've seen that traditional retail, particularly store visit conversions, have dropped a solid 90% since the beginning of February. That's, of course, hugely impactful, hugely meaningful to a lot of local businesses out there who may not have been as prepared for a digital first format. What we are seeing, though, is it's not all awful. The fact that Google search ad click-through rates have actually increased during this period of time shows the fact that people still value search ads. People still interact with search ads, particularly if they can answer the question that they're searching for. Google search cost per clicks have decreased by about 12% during this period of time. So they're still relatively affordable. There's still a lot that we can get out of search ads. And we're seeing the fact that although people might be purchasing differently, their preferences are shifting. They're not ending. People aren't stop searching for things, but how they go about searching for them is changing. Want to highlight just 5 major trends that we got a lot of questions on that I hope that I can preemptively answer with a little bit of data. But the number one trend that we're seeing across all of search, not just Google search, but there's a lot of new searches that are coming out of a COVID-19 world. COVID-related searches have become the most popular searches on Google today. That's more popular than searches for the weather, than searches for Gmail, for Facebook, for porn. And we see the fact that consequently, about 1 out of 4 searches that occur today have never happened before in the history of Google. And that's really, really surprising, really, really shocking when you think of the millions and billions of searches that Google has every day, that 1 out of 4 of them right now have never happened before. On a regular day, that's closer to 1 out of 8. So right now we're seeing there's so many new searches that have either never happened before or happened so frequently that it's beginning to really impact people's search campaigns. This means, of course, that as new keywords, as new searches begin to emerge, we need to be very proactive about adding new negatives and keeping on top of what people are searching for. Day to day, that week to week, this is changing quickly. By all means, the Google Trends Coronavirus Hub is a wonderful source of data for all of this. So I highly encourage people to go check that out when they've got the opportunity. Second major trend that's impacting our advertising is that far fewer people are searching on mobile than they were in the past. Of course, the fact that we're all less mobile as we're all in some kind of shelter in place means the fact that we're traveling less. It means that we're less likely to leave our desktop computers. We're much more likely to make that search on a desktop device than necessarily a mobile device than we would have in the past. That's a huge shift from what we're used to seeing on Google search. Of course, on Google, they hail and they brag about the fact that most of their traffic is mobile. We're seeing a lot of that reverse. We're seeing a lot of mobile searches go back to being desktop searches during this period of time. And so although mobile is still a significant share of Google traffic, it's a surprise shift from what it was back in March or back in February. So that suddenly begins to shift the way that we go about marketing online and how we go about writing our ads and targeting our ads to users. Next, we see the fact that, hey, as users have to search left, have to travel less, have to commute less, and a lot of us are genuinely staying up later at night. We're seeing the fact that searches are occurring later at night as well. So we're actually seeing the fact that there is an uptick in searches at the late evening. Here on the right, you can see a graph that highlights specifically early morning after midnight searches really begin to pick up both on weekdays and weekends from what that normally looks like, whereas a lot of searches during the workday are not necessarily happening as frequently. That's really, really interesting, particularly when you look at when you combine this with the first trend, when people are specifically searching for COVID-related content, it's generally first thing and last thing in the evening. And that's really, really beginning to shift some behaviors as well. We know we normally see the fact that search conversion rates are lowest during these late hours. So consequently, as people are making a lot more of these searches late in the evening or early in the morning, we're seeing consequently a lot of advertisers see some poor performance as these become more and more popular. So knowing the fact that people are searching at different times, this is really going to impact some of our decisions around day parting and how we go about reaching or excluding a lot of these searches that come through during times that we wouldn't normally expect them. Now, there's a lot of course, challenges on the Google SERP, but we're actually seeing some networks, particularly off of Google, do really well during this point in time. When we talk about mobile, for instance, mobile makes up such a large percentage of Google search traffic, but almost a very small percentage of Bing search traffic. So although we're seeing similar kinds of challenges on Bing, they're a lot more muted than they are in Google. We're actually seeing a lot of our advertisers who would normally not have as consistent results on Bing have a lot better performance on Bing than on Google today. Outside of search, we're seeing people are still spending a whole lot more time online. And suddenly this gives us a whole lot more opportunity for different types of ways to reach our audience across the Google Display Network, across video, across YouTube, and across social. We're seeing here the Google Display Network is getting a 13% increase in traffic since the beginning of March due to COVID. We're seeing YouTube have a 21% increase in reach. We're similarly seeing very strong results from Facebook during this period of time, just because we're seeing the fact that although we're not necessarily finding these people who are searching as frequently, these people are most certainly still going online and finding brands online that way. So this is actually a beautiful moment to pivot or make sure that you're truly advertising cross-network, given the fact that people are going to be more cross-network during a period of time like this. And finally, the most recent trend, and this is something that I haven't really shared a whole lot externally, so really excited to talk about it today. We're actually beginning to see a lot of performance begin to rebound already. So if you look at the chart on the right, we're looking at one of the things I do is I track week over week average growth in our accounts. And of course, during a regular week, a regular month, these are fairly small changes. It's not a big focus of my life. But during COVID, when a lot of people are changing their behaviors, these numbers were shifting, and they were shifting on a daily or weekly basis altogether. So they suddenly became very important to me in terms of monitoring. What we're seeing is the fact that for the weeks basically through mid-March down to early April, we're seeing a lot of advertisers begin to really struggle on Google, on Bing, and on Facebook, pulling back week over week, both in terms of budget and conversions. What we're seeing here, though, is basically since April 13th, we've hit that bottom, and a lot of advertisers are beginning to see consistent growth since the mid-April here. And that's really promising. It does coincide with a lot of things going on particularly in the States, but internationally, a lot of countries, a lot of regions have already hit the peak or plateauing in terms of COVID, so that there's general optimism in the markets. There's general, we're having conversations about planning to reopen in a lot of regions, a lot of markets. Where in the States and abroad, a lot of stimulus hit in the middle of April, so a lot of consumers are going out, they're getting their money, so they're able to spend again. And particularly in the States, we hit the payroll protection program went into effect, which guaranteed a lot of small and medium businesses coverage for some financial aid to help them cover costs such as their rent, their payroll, et cetera, for a few months. So we're seeing the fact that, hey, a lot of these good things that are happening in the market with respect to COVID, as well as some economic stimulus, hit just the right time to begin to turn around a lot of results and a lot of mentalities around how people are going about searching and ultimately purchasing online. So we're seeing, if you were previously seeing very poor results in March or April, it looks like we've hit the inflection point and we're beginning to see better results towards the end of April. Hope to share a lot more of this as we see a recovery across the board. But so those are the 5 main things that we've been looking at in terms of COVID. I know that well in advance of this, you guys were not shy about sending in questions that you wanted to discuss. I want to turn that back over to you guys to make sure that we're able to get the most out of this today. I'm going to do a live Q&A for the next 15 minutes to make sure that we can get everything in. So if you haven't had the opportunity, definitely pop open that questions box. I'll make sure that we can go through and answer as many of these as we possibly can. But in the meantime, let me just open that up. Okay, first question came in from Greg. How many are you crafting your search ads in regards to COVID safety, even for non-COVID searches? So biggest piece of recommendation, biggest trend that I've been seeing is a lot of the language that we used back in February, January in the past, a lot of our best performing ads aren't going to perform the same way that they would previously. Whether or not you're in a medical field and you're specifically referencing the virus, or whether or not you're tangential or what have you, even if you're a restaurant, you have to begin thinking about the images and the messaging that you would previously run. I know, for instance, that we at WordStream had some ads that were prepared for March Madness, for the big game, for the Olympics, et cetera, et cetera. All of those very timely written ads suddenly have a completely different connotation to them, given current events. So the biggest thing is, I'd say, hey, revisit your ads, make sure that they're sensitive and that they're accurate, and mind the fact that people's interest right now in a world where they might not be able to travel, might not want to travel, might not want to get involved physically with people all that much right now, that you'd have to go and you have to revisit your ad copy. So this is a perfect opportunity. There's 7 ads on the SERP. You want to make sure that you're serving the ad that's most relevant to a person's search and a person's needs, what differentiates you from the other competitors on the SERP. If you're able to provide a service right now, or if there's any kinds of reduced operations or changes that you're having as it relates to COVID, you should definitely call it out. Things like contactless delivery, things like you're able to do this job or package this safely. Like, safety is a huge concern, and even if you don't use the word, well, specifically try not to use the word coronavirus or COVID in your ad copy, but mind the fact that people have different sensibilities right now. A huge win for advertisers, just to make sure that they're able to reach people and message appropriately. We're seeing that responsive search ads are doing a really good job of matching people's intended need to the message that people will react best towards. It allows us to quickly test a lot of headlines and descriptions across both Google and Microsoft, so that we're able to match the correct message to the correct searcher. A question came in earlier around Google Ads and the ad credits that they mentioned, or they originally promised to advertisers, whether or not people were receiving them, what advertisers should expect. So Google Ads at the beginning of the month, or last month, I suppose, announced that they'd be rolling out about $340 million worth of ad credit to advertisers whom were advertising on their network from at least 10 out of the 12 months in 2019. And so consequently, right now, advertisers have not received that. They will not need to apply for that. That credit will automatically be applied to their accounts. We're not anticipating, or Google is not anticipating, rolling that credit out to advertisers until the very earliest, the end of May. So there's still a solid month. If you haven't received those credits yet, don't worry, no one has. Advertisers will begin to receive them in May, and they'll continue to roll that out in phases. So I would not anticipate, hey, if you haven't received it yet, don't worry, you don't need to apply for it. You didn't miss a deadline. It's still coming in. Google will have additional specifications in terms of how it will message advertisers how much they should receive. It's worth noting that how much advertisers receive in credit is going to vary from advertiser to advertiser. Smaller advertisers will, of course, receive smaller credit. Larger advertisers will receive a proportional credit towards that. But that's not beginning until May. There is no application process. Those credits will be good through the end of the calendar year of 2020 that you can use across search, display, YouTube, Gmail, anything within the Google Ads platform. You're welcome to use those ad credits for. When businesses start to reopen again, what platforms and markets should we target in the Republic of Ireland? I would say I don't see a lot of specific differences across different regions. Hey, a lot of, with the exception of Sweden, a lot of these markets really behave the same way in lockdown. And as markets reopen, they're having a similar kind of trend. It's going to be a very phased, a very slower reaction here. I would say that what markets and platforms are best in Ireland are probably very similar to what's good in the UK and the rest of EU. And right now, we do see the fact that a lot of users are primarily on their desktop. So outside of Google Search is always a solid performer, but outside of Google Search, Microsoft does have about 25% desktop market share within the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland. I would anticipate that that remains very high during a post-COVID world, as we're still going to spend a whole lot of time on our desktop. It's going to be a very phased recovery program. We're still going to continue to ease into this. Outside of Microsoft, I do think that right now is a beautiful time to talk about Facebook and Instagram, just because people are spending so much time on it. How you go about making fans and getting your brand out there during a period of time like this is going to leave an impression. So if you can launch a successful Facebook or Instagram campaign right now, that's going to come back in droves as your business is able to pick up and as more people are confident in terms of advertising online. Are all the stats in this call US specific or worldwide? Broadly, yes. Most of our clients, or about 75% of our data, does come from the US. So I do focus on this within the US, but I did make the caveat earlier. I've looked across this in terms of the UK market, in terms of the Australian market, and in terms of the South African market. This is very similar internationally. I haven't really changed the stats all that much internationally just because it's so similar at the aggregate level. Of course, there's some nuance towards that in terms of like what's specifically available to advertise online. I know, for instance, the UK has completely different health and medical policies than the United States, right? Consequently, growth in the US health market has been single digit. In fact, struggling in terms of a lot of elective procedures. That's not necessarily true in the UK. And so we're seeing that a lot of the markets internationally that are not allowed in the US are actually doing particularly well during this point in time. Health and medical is a strong one in the UK, but outside of that, you have a conversation about online gambling. Online gambling, for better or worse, is also doing very fantastic during this period of time. When you say that growth is rebounding, is this growth in valid leads, clicks, or impressions? In this, I'm measuring our average client's conversion volume. And so specifically what we're seeing is that across the board, most of our clients week over week are growing in terms of conversion volume. Now that does correlate to a growth in spend as well, and to impressions and clicks. So this is a big game of like cause and effect, but broadly, hey, what I am seeing is I am seeing a lot of advertisers finding success or increase success towards the latter half of this month. So that's certainly something that I want to QA just a little bit more before we go out and publish that data more broadly, but it's something that specifically coincides with a lot of economic initiatives internationally and in the States that very happy to highlight. I hope that that trend continues throughout the remainder of the month. And if that does, then that's the only good sign that we're all recovering. Have I noticed any shifts in pharmaceutical ad performance? Yeah. Pharma has been growing significantly during this period of time. Pharma is, of course, on top of everyone's mind, particularly as leaders and health officials muddle over different trends towards health here. Even outside of a COVID world, this is one of those things, how we go about having getting a prescription or engaging with doctors through telemedicine is quickly shifting those trends. So a lot of people are searching for these things through Google, through Bing. Like I said, in the UK, their telemedicine and their online pharmacies policies are a lot more liberal. But actually last week, Google opened up both for Google My Business to schedule to include telemedicine links for people to schedule an appointment, as well as a verification program for advertisers who are online pharmacies. So you can go about now, even in the States and Canada, you can now begin to serve ads for online pharmacies today. Okay, and I just want to realize I'm running a little low on time. So I'm just going to try and answer one or two more questions. COVID hasn't shown to be very relevant to leads we're trying to generate. Should I add it as a negative keyword and risk losing searches? What I'd say is broadly, follow the data on that. You can go through your search query report or through QueryStream if you're a WordStream customer and quickly just do a search for COVID or Corona and see whether or not there's performance there. If you're saying that Corona isn't very relevant to your searches, to your leads, it's very possible that they're still searching for you if you're open during COVID, if you're safe during COVID, those kinds of searches. It's certainly going to be a new search to you, but it still could be relevant traffic. So I just follow the data before you make the decision. But yeah, absolutely, if it's not performing well, add it as a negative. There's a lot of searches around it. And one last question. Have clients increased or decreased their spend during this time? What is your suggestion? So broadly, across the board, yes, clients have decreased some. There are, of course, some intricacies and nuances in that. Like I said, health and medical is doing very well. Finance is doing very well during all of this. They're increasing their ad spend. But across the board, on average, yes, people are decreasing their budgets by an average of 22%. Now, what we are seeing is that's beginning to rebound. And right now, about 2/3 of clients are beginning to reinvest in their budgets. They're beginning to up those budgets from their low of early April, late March. But even still, my best suggestion towards this is you should continue to fund the campaigns that are profitable for you. You know that you've got leads coming in. If those leads are valid, if they're converting to customers, then right now it quite frankly could be a fire sale in terms of getting those leads. If you're not seeing good performance, or you're unable to service those leads or do anything with them for the foreseeable time, those leads might be worth less to you, and so consequently your paid search budgeting should adjust to that. by all means, if you'd like to work with a professional to get a better sense of what the best budget is for you or what you can realistically get out of a certain budget, happy to continue that conversation. So it's just hit time here on the East Coast. I want to thank you guys for taking the time, joining us for a special kind of webinar that we're definitely testing out here. Hope to do a number of these again in the future. I know that for the next 3 weeks, we've got similar kinds of webinars scheduled, particularly as it relates to writing ad copy, Facebook and Instagram, and how we go about reopening your business during COVID. By all means, if you like it, happy to hear it. If you have constructive criticism or feedback, please send that along as well. And by all means, if I wasn't able to answer your question today, please reach out to us either via social or through WordStream. We're all too happy to make sure that you have these answers to your questions. And if we don't have the answer immediately, just gives us a place to begin to look for. So thank you for your time today. And with that, I'm going to sign off. Have a good one. Bye.